This is Ali Mohsin Hashmi, live from CNI News. Over the last 3 to 4 months, we've been covering the tension between the two countries, the two nuclear powers of subcontinent, India and Pakistan, over the issue of Kashmir. For the past 3 months, we've been speaking to the politicians from both ends. We've been speaking to politicians from India, we've been speaking to politicians from Pakistan, and we've been speaking to politicians from the UK. How that issue is going to be resolved remains a question. Now we have today to discuss that particular issue, representing Azad Kashmir, which is the Pakistani part of Kashmir, the President, His Excellency. We have here Sardar Masood Khan. So welcome to the UK and Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Firstly, how has your visit been into the UK so far?
Very successful, very productive. I met members of Parliament, I also met community leaders, and I had talked to the media. And I think you have the right kind of ambience here to reach out to people who would support the cause of Kashmir and put some pressure on India to stop its human rights violations there. So it has been a very productive visit.
Today marks a special day on the global history and modern democracy, being the 27th of October. Can you give us a little bit of insight to what this day is and why it's named or termed as Black Day?
It's a black day because way back in 1947, to be precise, on the 27th of October 1947, India invaded the territory of Jammu and Kashmir, forcibly occupied that territory, and has maintained its occupation of that territory since then. It's a black day because on that day they changed or tried to change the character, the persona of Jammu and Kashmir. At that time, it was a popular expectation that the people of Jammu and Kashmir and the territory would join Pakistan. But India halted that process, that natural process, and therefore undermined the will of the people of Jammu and Kashmir. It has not succeeded in doing that. A couple of days earlier, in fact 24th of October 1947, we established the Azad state of Jammu and Kashmir.
This is the Pakistani part of Kashmir.
This is Azad Jammu and Kashmir, as it is called. And the people of the entire territory, they have to determine their own political future through a plebiscite, which has been mandated by the United Nations Security Council.
So today you were marching on the streets of London in remembrance or commemoration of 27th of October. What was the turnout like? I know we've reported it, we've seen various media houses. Whilst you come out on the streets of London, there is a media blackout in occupied part of Kashmir. How do you feel?
Yes, it's very tragic that in the occupied Kashmir there is a blackout or information blackout. There are restrictions on the internet, the Wi-Fi, the social media, even the papers. So because India is afraid that the Kashmiris will tell their narrative or they would talk about their plight, and it is committing heinous crimes there in the occupied territory. It has cordoned off the entire territory and is perpetrating crimes against humanity. And it has imposed a gag order on Kashmiris and wants to isolate them so that people do not come to know about Indian atrocities there.
So those viewers who actually don't know, we've been reporting for the past 3 to 4 months, and we know that there is a curfew, which is state-governed, very strict curfew where medical facilities have been taken away, schools have been shut down. Can you give us a little bit of insight? What do you know from being, a Kashmiri yourself and the president of the free part of Kashmir? What sort of information do you have? Because there is a media blackout.
But still, the information about the plight of the Kashmiris is trickling out, and mainstream British papers or mainstream international papers, they're reporting, but selectively, I would say. But still we have sufficient information about the atrocities there. And this is but a fraction of what is happening there. The evidence that we get about India's atrocities and excesses is damning already. And I would say that some sort of accountability must be established in regard to India's crimes. And this is not happening. So what they're doing, they are in fact torturing Kashmiris, they're maiming them, they've blinded them, they've injured them critically. And I would also like to add that they're dishonoring Kashmiri women, raping and molesting them. So there's a reign of terror there. India is using state terrorism against the Kashmiris. They are using these detained boys as human shield. They strip them naked and take to the communities where they want to launch a raid. So it's very barbaric, it's very tragic. But as I said, that India is committing all these crimes with impunity. The international community must come forward and must come to the rescue of the Kashmiris.
Talking of alleged violence that's been carried out by Indian Army, if you actually look into the Indian media, if you actually look at the social media, if you actually look at what's being reported from Indian airwaves, there is over the last sort of few days in particular, they've actually arrested 7 militants who were trained in Pakistan, allegedly. And there were 2 Jaish-e-Mohammed terrorists who are actually directly associated with Uri attack, which was an attack on Indian military base. How do you respond to those, which is directly affecting Pakistan's relationship with Kashmir?
This is all fabricated evidence. I mean, they want to divert attention from their atrocities in Jammu and Kashmir. They want to give this impression to the world that what is happening in Kashmir is terrorism. It's not terrorism, it's freedom struggle. Kashmiris en bloc, en masse, they have rejected Indian rule. They have rejected Indian writ in the state. They're demanding realization of their right to self-determination. So India has panicked, and it is sort of fabricating this evidence. There's no terrorism taking place. There is no Jaish-e-Mohammed presence there. There are no Jaish-e-Mohammed operatives going into the Indian-occupied Kashmir. There is terrorism, but it is terrorism which is engineered and executed by Indian occupation forces.
So you mentioned over the last few weeks you've been, in particular, a Pakistani government has been lobbying. There's been a special envoy to the UK, there's been a special envoy to the UN. Their Speaker Assembly, who I recently interviewed, Sardar Masood Khan, he termed this particular Kashmiri struggle an indigenous movement, whilst on the other hand, Indians deny that particular claim because they term it as something that's been funded and aided by Pakistani military. How do you respond to those two views?
Well, I'll subscribe to the view that it is an indigenous movement. It's an indigenous campaign against Indian atrocities and brutalities. What has roiled Indians is that Kashmiris have rejected their illicit rule in the Indian-occupied Kashmir, and they have panicked, as I said.
So you fairly understandable. From the point of view of in lack of willingness to come around a table to talk about Kashmir issue, this is something that we've been hearing from the other part of subcontinent, in particular Pakistani camps. Whereas we witnessed on Tuesday evening a special envoy of BJP government actually went and met with separatist leader Mr. Gilani and Mirwais Umar Farooq, surely to resolve the situation in Kashmir and perhaps negotiate the curfew. How do you respond to that view, whereby we get the impression that there is a willingness on Indian camps to negotiate?
They are not there to negotiate. I think they are there to soften Kashmiri opposition to their rule, and this might well be a ruse. Mr. Gilani is a very respected politician. He would make no such compromise, and But the Kashmiris, or always Kashmiri leadership, they are always willing to talk. Pakistanis also, they have offered India to come to the negotiating table, but India has not done so under different pretexts. In fact, they want to maintain the status quo. They want to perpetuate their occupation of the territory. And that's why they are not coming forward for negotiations. I think that war is not an option between India and Pakistan or for the solution of the Jammu and Kashmir issue. We think that ultimately a definitive solution to the Kashmir dispute would be found through negotiations.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi has taken it upon himself and his government that he wants to isolate Pakistan from its regional friends, neighbours and global powerhouses. How do you respond to that?
He will not succeed. I mean, he should be worried about India because of his extremist policies, because of the eruption of these fault lines that divide India. He should be worried about fracturing of India itself. He won't be able to isolate Pakistan. Pakistan has friends, China, Russia, even in the Western countries. He won't succeed in his designs.
As of 2016, Great Britain has royally decided to leave European Union, and that adds an extra pressure to Theresa May, the Prime Minister, to form alliances with global houses of economics powers, and that includes India. How do you feel Brexit and economic stress upon British economy will become some sort of hindrance between Britain, Pakistan and India in resolving Kashmir issue finally?
Prime Minister May intends to go to Delhi and she will have talks with her counterpart. She should raise the issue of Jammu and Kashmir with him. This is an obligation, a moral obligation for the United Kingdom, particularly against the backdrop of state-sponsored violence, Indian state-sponsored violence in the Indian-occupied Kashmir. Second, I think that the United Kingdom also intends to negotiate a trade agreement with India. In the framework and context of that agreement, yes, she should, I mean, the Prime Minister and her colleagues, her cabinet ministers, should raise the issue of the human rights situation in Jammu and Kashmir.
As a former diplomat yourself, are you satisfied that Britain will play the role that it should? And what makes you feel, if you do feel that it would, over the last 68 years it hasn't?
Well, I think that in the British Parliament, the House of Commons, there are many voices expressing concern about the deteriorating human rights and humanitarian situation in the Indian-occupied Kashmir. I remain sanguine that the British citizens, the British parliamentarians, would be supportive of the people of Jammu and Kashmir, and they would support the efforts of the leadership of Azad Kashmir and the people of Indian-occupied Kashmir for the realization of the right to self-determination of the people of Jammu and Kashmir. Let me also add that the diaspora community here, Kashmiris and Pakistanis, they are quite active and they are integrated into the British society. And I think that they have clout, and their clout would also make a difference. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Viewers, you heard the views of President of Azad Kashmir, Sardar Masood Khan. In his discussion with CNI News, he expressed the concerns about human rights violations being carried out by Indian army, whilst on the other hand, Indians are reticent of admitting any of those atrocities. Who is right, who is wrong, may be the question, but right now the lives are being lost. Who is responsible, again, remains a question. Until next time, Ali Mohsin Hashmi signing off from CNI News with cameraman Ali Raza. Assalamu alaikum.